Now, as far as I'm concerned, Julia Roberts is just as bad as George Clooney after she actually took part in that political commercial that really endorsed or really promoted the overall fact to lie to your husband or to your wife about who you're voting for. That's basically what Julia Roberts and George Clooney did in that commercial by voicing everything over. And they got a lot of heat for that. They got a lot of backlash for that for very valid reasons, and rightfully so. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Julia Roberts is that we know that she pretty much has been all for DEI, all for diversity, equity, and inclusion, everything wrong in the film industry. She is all for everything when it comes down to the studio agendas that are forced down the general public's throats, that are now beginning to dial back, all because of what's been going on across the entire country. But what's interesting about this now has a lot more to do with Julia Roberts taking a stand against the general public and getting a little bit fiery, getting a little bit angry about the criticism that she's been receiving, about the backlash that she has been noticing, and it all has to do with the commercial that she did on top of other factors. Now, interestingly enough, we know that Julia Roberts, along with George Clooney, we know that they are paired together, they do a lot of projects, they have done a lot of things together before in the past, and when you look at Julia and George, alright, the fact that they took part in this interview, I think was definitely a career ender right then and there. But interestingly enough, to top things off here, she goes on to actually face the public, she goes on to blame the public for multiple reasons as to why she's getting criticism. So let's jump into that. Now, with the entire woke media in Hollywood now working in a desperate move to recover and to restore their lost fans and followers, one monumental development going on now involves Julia Roberts in the wake of the significant backlash that she received after her universally rejected political commercial with George Clooney. Now, Julia Roberts recently delivered the following in response to the backlash and other things going on. I think it's very important to be a woman right now in 2024, and as a woman, you have to be brave, you have to have courage, so I'm gonna have to address the criticism that I have been receiving, that I believe is just flat out wrong and childish. I have no regrets for the commercial that I did with George, and I think everyone is getting the meaning of that commercial mixed up. It's not what you wanted, it's not what we wanted for husband and wives lying to each other. It's that we wanted to promote courage. That's what the true American spirit is all about. And I have no regrets, and I don't care what anyone says, because it's important to be a woman and to be brave. The same goes for male feminists who feel that they get this terrible stigma from the public that is just so terrible for them to deal with. I think that we could do better, a lot better, and this commercial shined the light on how divided this country is, to the point that we have to do things about our wives or husbands and behind their backs, such as lying. This commercial was about showcasing the division that puts us in that spot and the bravery that we can grow as a people. I am seeing a lot of blaming going around lately that people that have money or fame or whatever are nothing more than liars. Labeling, of course, so-called celebrities as part of the problem is a very toxic trait. Look, I'm 57 years old now, and I'm in a very good place in my life where I've seen also masculinity change over time, unfortunately, and it most definitely now is toxic masculinity taking over the country, and we need to control that ASAP. We just have to somehow, some way, because it's getting out of control. We need to also stop putting a stigma on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The fact that we know the fact that we now have leaders that are doing everything in their power to remove DEI is despicable behavior. It's absolutely awful, because DEI is about fairness, it's about kindness, whether it's film, television, or anywhere in show business and organizations. So, guys, let me just stop here quick about what Julia is just throwing out there to the public and forcing it onto the public. So she says things like, oh, this commercial was nothing about lying, and then out of nowhere she goes on to literally say, yeah, it was about lying, but it's not interpreted the way that you believe it is. It's showcasing how divided the country is, to the point where you have to lie to each other. And so that really is just hypocritical when it comes to her point, especially when she first came out just before and said, "This commercial is not about lying." Well, it is. That's exactly what the commercial was about, and that's why so many people really were deeply offended by that, and deeply offended by the fact that it was voiced by George and Julia, and it's not just voiced by them, they 100% believe in what they did. They have no regrets about this, and you should have regrets about this because look at your career now, look at how you are perceived in the general public, or through the public eye, I should say. So, once again, I mean, Julia Roberts is not letting it go. She's not taking her foot off the gas pedal. She is, of course, just doubling down her agenda. She's doubling down on everything. Whether, of course, it's with the commercial, or now whether it's with DEI. She's really saying DEI is about fairness and kindness. There's absolutely no evidence out there that it's about that, because DEI has been nothing more than a way to destroy multiple IPs and properties out there on purpose, to just shoehorn their overall agenda into a popular brand. And we've seen this with Star Wars, we've seen this with Marvel, we've seen this with many other brands out there. That's just to name a few, by the way. But moving on forward, she goes on to conclude, when you get rid of DEI, you get rid of fairness and balance. And that, to me, is the greatest threat in recent years. It's very important for some studios to keep DEI in their way of creating projects, because it has helped this country in so many ways. Anyone who is opposed to something like that, I have noticed that they tend to tap into endorsing misogyny and sexism, and those are just awful, awful behaviors. What we need to do now is we need to stop blaming celebrities and show business as part of the problem for the division in this country, and we need to start looking at the people. So she's going on this trope again that DEI is about fairness and balance, all these crazy things. I think that it would be very wise for Julia Roberts to just stay away in Hollywood for the next 10, 15 years, maybe even forever at that, and to just vanquish and to just pretty much, quite frankly, disappear into thin air. Because nobody really likes Julia Roberts anymore, especially after the commercial, especially now, after she believes that what she's saying is brave and courageous by sounding like a lunatic. I think at the end of the day, alright, you're gonna see more and more of these celebrities. You're gonna have two versions of them. Some of them are going to double down on their agenda, just like Julia. Some of them are going to be acting very much in silence. They're not going to comment on anything anymore, or they're going to try to apologize, or something around those lines. And it's going to be very disingenuous apologies. So that's what George Clooney, by the way, is trying to do. He's trying to land several interviews that would work in his favor for sharing his side of the political story, and also apologizing in his own twisted way. But overall, I mean, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about George Clooney, Julia Roberts, the commercial, everything to do with DEI, and everything to do with Hollywood. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.